Imagine for a moment with me if you could buy a stock that was straddling the intersection between tech, manufacturing, green, and growth, while at the same time showing solid growth with a consistent pattern of heavy R&D investment to keep them at the leader of their industry, while simultaneously acquiring numerous other industry leaders. The stock's growing well and is legitimately poised to become one of, if not the leader in the coming fourth industrial revolution. Backed by big names like Chamath Palihapitiya and Cathie Woods, Desktop Metal is powering forward into becoming potentially more game-changing than most people realize, and the stock price is showing the exact opposite right now. My name is Trey McKee, and welcome back to Benevolent Investors, where our goal is to help you get more out of your investments so you can give more to take care of those around you. Desktop Metal, which is ironically growing into neither just desktop nor just metal, is an additive manufacturing powerhouse which was formed through a SPAC about a year ago. You can think of additive manufacturing as something similar to 3D printing, but most people think of 3D printing as something that's like very basic and rudimentary and very slow, something that like a hobbyist would pick up to print out like a new holder for their Nintendo Switch or something like that. But the game's been changed heavily, and even just in the last few months, Desktop Metal is making change after change, upgrade after upgrade, and rattling the industry. With numerous industry-shattering acquisitions, which we'll get into in here in a minute, Desktop Metal is positioning its additive manufacturing technology to worldwide distribution across nearly all types of materials, including polymers, elastomers, wood, ceramics, most metals you can think of, and most combinations of metals you can think of, and reaching into literally any and every industry. While we're still very much on the ground floor, looking into the financials and attempting any kind of rational breakdown to determine what a fair valuation would be is an exercise in futility at this point. The analysts' estimates vary obnoxiously, and people's expectations also vary massively. On top of that, the stock price chart from the last few months kind of looks like Blockbuster Videos did in 2009, 2010. I'll get a bit more into some of these figures in a minute, but I just wanted to jump into a list of some of their acquisitions and landmarks to give you an idea of how groundbreaking Desktop Metal is right now. I've mentioned in previous videos their EnvisionTech acquisition, which got them into resins and polymers. EnvisionTech has been the leader of 3D printing super high resolution, aka super smooth, implants, and dental pieces such as dentures, ears, and noses, and stuff like that. This all happened in and around February for about $300 million and opened the door to Desktop Metal's desktop health portion of their business. Because most people think of the 3D printing of 5 years ago when they think of 3D printing, it's hard to imagine printing out a replacement ear or something like that that looks realistic for somebody who, has maybe got an injury and lost their ear. It's also hard to imagine printing out high quality dentures that fit perfectly on the first try in a fraction of the time that it would have taken traditional methods. The EnvisionTech acquisition has gotten Desktop Metal to become one of the industry leaders in the whole area basically instantly, and we'll see some complementary technologies that, they're acquiring and that they're working on right now for all of this here in a moment. Usually when we think of additive manufacturing, we don't immediately think like, wow, they're saving the earth or something like that. But Forrest has come onto the scene to change that. When we consider that 15 billion trees are harvested worldwide and 84 million tons of sawdust is made in the US alone every single year, Forrest brings additive manufacturing onto the scene to do something about that. Additive manufacturing is a process that uses the material in a powder form and either binds, fuses, or sinters the microscopic pieces together to create a solid object. Upcycling waste wood and the sawdust waste we create each year with a process like this, you're able to produce beautiful and articulate pieces for a great price that can be used in mass manufacturing for luxury home goods or vehicles, for example. Continuing on the biofabrication that I was mentioning a minute ago with EnvisionTech, Desktop Metal's also made another acquisition in the area. Phonograph, part of the Beacon Bio acquisition that just wrapped up, works with biomimicry to create pieces that actually teach and aid your body in recovery. One example of how this could work is this programmable and biodegradable 3D printed graft that could help patients who have damaged their eardrums, an otherwise irreparable ailment, to be restored. They mentioned that during the Boston Marathon bombing many years back, many people sustained eardrum perforations from the blast and have not been able to restore proper, hearing function. But Desktop Metal's new technology could aid in reconstruction, allowing the company access not only into the ear restoration industry, but further down the line, all kinds of biological and medical applications. This phonograph deal was announced in July. Another super big deal that most people won't really understand the significance of is the Aerosint acquisition that was announced in July as well. Founded in 2016, this Belgian company holds patents that allow them to be able to do additive manufacturing with numerous materials simultaneously. There's no more need to waste time manufacturing two different parts or numerous different parts out of different materials and then assembling them or machining them together when you can just make it all at the same time correctly in the first place. This opens up so many doors for so many industries, but one of the examples they cited was having conductive metal pass within polymer parts for flexible electronics. So typically, up until now, all of the electronics inside a part are dealt with in one factory or one location, and like the actual case or the actual, let's say it's a cell phone, a smartphone, all of that stuff is kind of done separately and then assembled. This would just be like, hey, print the entire thing, all different materials all at the same time. And finally, probably one of the biggest ones, the ExOne acquisition that was just announced the other day. I was shocked by this one because I assumed that ExOne was a lot bigger than Desktop Metal, and I was right on one measure, which is revenues, but comparing market caps, Desktop Metal is like 10 times bigger than ExOne actually. The ExOne acquisition, much like all the other ones I mentioned earlier, gives Desktop Metal an even more firm grasp on the industry, while at the same time allowing for multiplicative benefits in cost savings on one hand, and on a more thorough product offering on the other. While Desktop Metal is known for offering by far the industry's fastest printers to allow for the highest output single material items, this diagram shows us how being able to offer, for example, ExOne's triple ACT, they'll also be able to meet customers' needs in the case of working with various materials at different times on the same printer, as well as working with a larger build envelope. So to put it in terms of cars, I like to put things in terms of cars. Imagine Desktop Metal has only offered exotic sports cars up until now, but acquiring ExOne will allow them to start offering pickup trucks and like family wagons. Okay, now that I'm saying it out loud, that analogy like sucks in a lot of ways, but simply put, ExOne's products will fill in some of the gaps in Desktop Metal's product lines and allow them to offer a much more thorough suite of products to more specifically meet their clients' needs. This shot shows us another example of that. On the left, we have turnkey solutions for smaller applications. When you combine Desktop Metal's software and furnace tech with the ExOne InnoVent Pro, you'll be able to offer smaller build box sizes to open up their product offerings even more. The larger differentiation happens in the mid and mass volume sizes though, where the ExOne offering has a 25-liter build box, while Desktop Metal's is only a 1-liter. Over on the right side, looking at the mass sizes too, we see a similar thing. The acquisition will boost Desktop Metal's access to patents massively as well, further cementing their strong position in the market to one of even more dominance. Check this out here. We see the number of patents jumping from about 370 up to more than 650. We also see that combining Desktop Metal's superior products with ExOne's existing client base, by upgrading the offerings and existing frames in use, global adoption of 3D printing could speed up significantly as well. So now that we know that Desktop Metal seems to be poised to take over the whole future of this industry somehow, let's take a look at some of the numbers they've provided. And again, like I mentioned earlier, because we're in the super early stages of the industry and the company actually, the numbers still very much represent the fact that this is a speculative play. Also, remember when we're looking at investor presentations like this, we need to keep in mind that they're going to present information in a way that gets us excited about the stock. So it's important to dig in a bit deeper into the financial statements and look at things like the 10Qs and stuff like that. This video is just meant to be a brief overview of the company, but please let me know down below if you'd like a deeper look into the financials. You guys know recently I did a big series on AMD. I did probably 6 videos in like 2 weeks or something like that. I wouldn't mind doing something like that with Desktop Metal. So let me know down in the comment section if you're interested in that. Second quarter revenues were up 68% from the first quarter and up 767% from the second quarter of last year. One of the interesting things about the stock right now is that because they were kind of like powering up to start distribution so hard for so long, we didn't see a lot of real revenues. But we're starting to see them now, and the ramp up is going to get even more steep in the coming quarters. And I expect to see the share price reflect that too. We also saw a non-GAAP gross margin of 25%, which is up 1,950 basis points from the first quarter this year. which is awesome. But unfortunately, it did lead to an adjusted EBITDA of negative $24.5 million. While the negative EBITDA sounds scary, keep in mind that they're buying companies like crazy. They've more than doubled their employee count from a year ago, and there's so many other different kind of R&D investments that are going on the side too. On the upside, as of June 30th, they were at cash and cash equivalents of about just over $500 million. Though my understanding is that it's come down a little bit since then because of all these acquisitions. And they're aiming to hit $100 million in revenues for this year. Put in perspective, the annual revenue chart is set to look something like this, which I would consider parabolic. And the neat thing about this business model that gets me more and more excited about the future is that, similar to like normal ink printers that we use at home every day, the machines, of course, cost the user money and make Desktop Metal money, but keeping them running, buying the materials, keeping the maintenance and service and software upgrades and stuff going is where the profit margins really start to get beefy. The more machines they have running around the world, the more the profit margins improve. And we're really just at the beginning of this. So with 65 plus countries in their distribution network now, and customer adoption momentum up 44% from the first quarter of this year, there's a lot to be excited about. Taking a quick look at the price chart, a lot of concerns come up, like I said, but I can't help but be reminded of how things felt with Tesla back in 2019. So many crazy technologies all lined up, looking like the stock price should absolutely explode, but it didn't for like a long time with Tesla. So I kept buying in little by little, expecting things, eventually to take off. And sure enough, they did. The world and the market and competitors started to realize, oh my gosh, they're so far ahead of us. They're like so advanced in their battery technology and self-driving technology and all this stuff. And y'all know what happened with the Tesla stock in the end. I feel like Desktop Metal is at a similar spot. The price just keeps going down and there's not a lot of love from the outside of the industry, it feels like. Like people outside of the industry just kind of don't really grasp how much this could break things going forward in the future. Add to that all the resurfacing of like inflation fears and Afghanistan related pessimism going on with the world, as well as corona fears and stuff like that. All of these things put even more pressure on the entire market, let alone on like a kind of a speculative type stock like this. And so I like Desktop Metal and I'm just going to keep buying it. What are you going to do? If you want to learn more about the fourth industrial revolution and a bunch of other supplementary info on Desktop Metal, check out this video linked right here. Love you guys and stay generous.